Radio has been in existence for the past 100 years and playing pivotal role in informing, educating, entertaining, and dissemination of information. With the rise of online streaming, podcasting, and social media integration, radio continues to play an important role in the society and a preference to many in this digital age. This shift has made radio stations to adapt by offering their own streaming services and creating regional online content to meet changing consumer preferences. For example, the popularity of podcasting has played a pivotal role in reshaping the radio landscape as consumers increasingly seek niche content on the go in real time. In this digital era, radio broadcasters have harnessed the power of social media to extend their reach, grow fan base, and drive engagement. Nigeria Today will focus on the impact and relevance of radio in this digital era. Thanks for joining us. I am Victoria Clinton, and welcome to Nigeria Today. Now, joining us in the studio, we have Professor Armstrong Idachaba, former Acting Director General, National Broadcasting Commission. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. You called your name Ikeria.
Ikeria Clinton.
You know, where you normally will say Bukeria. Madam Clinton, is a pleasure to meet you.
The pleasure is all mine here. Now, let's go straight to the topic of the day. Why is radio still an important medium to consider in this digital landscape that trends in technology and, of course, marketing continue to evolve?
Thank you very much. I think it's one that is topical and relevant. First of all, I like your background report. Attempts to capture the totality of the radio phenomenon, looking at how it has dynamized and made itself relevant. It continues to remain perhaps the most mysterious medium of communication.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, you know, because radio is blind. People, not like your television, where people get to see what is broadcast. Radio, most of the time, except now that you can, through technology, also stream along pictures. But ordinarily, within the standard traditional definition of radio, is basically audio. You don't get to see the man behind the voice. A lot of it is left to your imagination. It can be very intimate. Very personal. It is handy, very malleable, ubiquitous. It goes everywhere. It delivers just anything. It's ever present. Yet it has, depending on what you're listening to, it has a compelling effect, you know, and that is why it is very, very useful for several reasons, as you know. Is it for cultural integration? Is it for businesses? Is it for therapy? Increasingly, as you talked about podcasts and niche content, you know, people are beginning to identify specific thematic purposes, you know, for radio programming, you know, and much like a cult, most of the time when people get attracted, you know, they stay hooked, they follow the content, they even build, you know, some air of ownership, some air of intimacy, as I did earlier, with some of the radio personalities. And we see that often, increasingly all over the world. Many celebrities, many opinion leaders, many of them have been cultivated by radio. So, in summary, radio continues to be a mystery, a very intrusive in terms of how it can penetrate the people. Also very intimate, like I said, with the capacity to build followership and also build emotions, and that makes it very, very, very powerful.
Okay, and earlier you mentioned that it is blind in the sense that you don't know the people or the voice, the man behind the voice.
Absolutely.
But now we are seeing all that changing.
Yeah.
Would you say that with the modern technology, talking about the podcast, the live streaming, they've changed the concept of traditional radio?
Yeah, to some extent, but traditional radio still maintains its own uniqueness in terms of the some of the fundamental elements about ubiquity, about the capacity for it to to challenge your imaginative thought process, you know. What strikes me the most is the capacity of radio, you know, to generate interactiveness, you know, in terms of people's engagement, you know, and I see that very often. I mean, if you are talking about TV, yes, the audio, the visual element is there for some, but don't forget, even that is limited by data, you know, and accessibility and affordability. But with the conventional radio, the barriers, entry barriers and access barriers are lower. So you find more of the people, you know, joining the normal radio. And like I said, they participate. The most patronized form of broadcasting in Nigeria, perhaps all over the world, still remains the radio in terms of audiences and consumerism of people who follow content.
In other words, you don't view the technology as a threat.
It's not. It's rather complementary for those who can afford, and I think that it also expands the frontiers of the potential of radio, especially regarding audience reach and in terms of delivery of media content.
So how can they? Do you think, in your own opinion, do you think they can still remain competitive in you know, in an era that is digital centric?
Well, thank God for convergence. So what technology has done through adaptive technologies is to ensure that the options are available, you know, together. So it depends on what the choices of the consumer is supposed to be. I know, for instance, that sometimes even people who have access, you know, to audio-visual, sometimes at certain moments prefer just to listen to the audio. I mean, if you are driving to work, for instance, or you are even in the workplace or in your kitchen, regardless that the capacity for audio-visual is prevalent, of course you may choose just to go on the audio. So the audio continues to be that element that grants that level of convenience and intimacy, and I think that value is not going to depreciate in the immediate.
However, there must be some challenges, you know. So what do you think, in your own opinion, do you think the challenges that the radio broadcasters face in this digital era? Well,
naturally, of course, there are people who want a more extended experience.
Okay.
You know, not many people are encouraged in terms of staying power and engagement power when there's no visual attribute. You know, so that may be a minus. And you know, increasingly we are into a generation that's more inclined, you know, to pictures, especially with the proliferation of social media, video outlets, Instagram, and all the others that are emerging. But radio is not in a hurry to go.
No, having talked so much about how you know, the social media has been complementing the traditional radio, we also look at the older generation. You know, in those days we used to have the transistor radio where our old grandpas and grandmas, we have the radio close to their ear, you know. And but now, how can they fit into this the modern time where we have the digital, you know, social media and the rest of them? They are, you know, most of them are not really so used to it. So how do you think they can really, you know, fit into this present time?
Well, in media studies, there's a theory of diffusion of innovation theory, you know, that basically propounds that once technologies evolve, people who ordinarily are not even very literate gradually get attracted to it, and before you know, they begin to get the experience, and then they become enmeshed in it, and then they begin to also enjoy and share the experience. Take your mind back to when GSM came. A lot of people in the village will say naturally that they don't understand it, they don't know how to use it. They will call their children for tips and guides and like. But increasingly, we are seeing people moving up in terms of their capacity to navigate these technologies. I agree with you. There's a huge population of Nigerians, especially the older bracket, like you said, pre-independence and slightly post-independence, that are still, as I said, intimately connected to their traditional radio. They sleep with it, they wake with it. Some of them don't even change the dial, you know, because they have a favorite channel, and they are there. They depend on it for news, and that is very instructive. with the trend, with the lack of authentication, with the dissemination of fake news, and all the other effects as surrealism, deep fake, and all the negatives of social media. There are those who are very conservative, and I've rather come to the conclusion that there's only truth in conventional radio. So you are more likely to find those group of people to say, well, radio don't talk. If radio never talk, and then this thing maybe not be true. Exactly. so that's the level of import. Yeah. But for us in Nigeria, and I think the point must be made, that radio has contributed to Nigeria's development perhaps more than any other medium of communication. Don't forget, it came in 1932 with the arrival of the British. Then we grew into our own federal radio. Then the spread and proliferation began with the regional radio and then the state radio before 1992 when private broadcasting came. And of course, since then, radio has grown exponentially. During the British, it used to be a monopoly. Radio Nigeria, NTA used to be monopolies. But as we speak, there are about, from the records of the NBC, well over 400 radio stations in Nigeria. And many of them private, several others government, and they are competing side by side. A lot of national engagement happens on radio. National discourse engagement happens on radio. Cultural unity, promotion of national integration through radio programming content. Those that have the tendency, to re-stimulate and redocument our historical heritage and traditional heritage are also well-oiled, constantly put on air and on the radio. So radio remains, for me, a major melting point of the Nigerian national experience. And I think for a very long time it will continue to be.
Okay, I will take a break. This is still Nigeria Today. At this point, we'll take a break and listen to the people on the impact of the radio and its relevance on Nigeria and, of course, the development of the country, as put together by our correspondent, Comfort Amodu. Stay with us.
Radio can never be replaced. Radio, you can listen to radio anywhere in the world. Even as they're always saying it, even if in the tunnel, anywhere in the forest.
Okay, for example, like remote villages, you see those, let me use the farmers for example. Most of them don't have expensive phones that have internet enabled, but they have radio, transistor radio, that they hear daily news, even in their dialect, they have daily news that they listen to every day.
Especially for the aged parents, and because most of them don't even have the access to internet, and that is what they listen to. That is where they get their news from. Even if the internet is being the fastest place where news spread, I think the radio is still useful.
Sometimes there are news that will even come on air through social media. Since there is no code or any punishment that is attached to it, people give false information on social media quickly. But because of the ethics of radio and TV, you discover that whatever news we are going to broadcast on the radio is genuine. And so people even believe when news broke out from radio or giving news done on the social media.
In a day, in a month, I can count how many times I go on social media. But at least I can hear radio no matter where I am. In the car, I can hear radio. I'm sitting, someone is playing, I can still hear, but I won't be able to go on social media when I'm even busy. So the radio is still better.
Welcome back. This is still Nigeria Today, and we're looking at the radio in a digital era, and I have my guest here with me. Now, quite a lot of people believe that the radio is still very relevant, no matter, however the modern technology must have evolved. But again, one thing that has been of concern is with these social media, quite a lot of, the radio has been seen as a form of, like I said in my opening speech or my opening remark, that it educates, it informs. Of course, it also helps in molding and shaping, modern culture. But again, with the introduction of these new technologies, we see quite a lot of things going on, on the internet. Quite a lot of people feel okay, nobody can really checkmate us on the internet, so they do quite a lot of things, all in the name of broadcasting. So, what do you have to say in this trend that is, going on the internet by some unacceptable, so to say, in bracket, unacceptable, form of broadcasting that goes on the internet?
Thanks, Kay. I think you raise a very valid point. That's the point about the threat of, or how the new technology has also affected or brushed on the ethical standards of conventional radio. And I think it's a problem not only to media regulators, but also I think it's a societal problem and professionals generally. Because the trend now you see is away from the confines of your own regulated, editorialized, procedural, conventional radio. You now have some people that are competing with you on the net. Some of them will not even have license. They just go there and open their radio, and they invite all kinds of issues and all kinds of comments, and it's unregulated. So it is actually a threat, and because it is that open, right? The rules are hardly ever adhered to. It's extreme liberal expression. Some of them can be outrightly inciting. Some of them even use vulgar words, exactly on air, and even play lyrics, that are not in conformity with community moral standards. So you see that a lot, and that's a problem, and that is why in most countries. The conventional broadcast media is often requested, is often implored to as much as possible maintain ethics, and ensure. I've seen also from my experience as a regulator that sometimes because of the attraction of social media, even some of the conventional media operators get taken away. Sometimes they go even to do social media sources and carry content that are not verified. Like I said, some of them purely unedited and very, very much in contrast to normal societal values, and they also retransmit. So it calls actually for extreme caution, due diligence in terms of professional standards, so that the conventional broadcaster does not also fall into the same pit, of loss of integrity and loss of ethics and values, just as some of those conventional, social media and internet radio are beginning to engage. But that is not to say that internet technology and internet radio is also not contributing to development. There are many communities, and I also noticed that during the last election, that there are many communities in Nigeria, even with the 600 or to about 700 radio TV stations we have, there are populations that are underserved. If you do a math and you do a ratio of 200 million Nigerians, to about 600 radio and TV stations. So you see there's a gap in terms of access. Now the social media platforms are obviously filling those gaps, either on radio or on TV. But the point is they must be made to realize that they also owe the society a responsibility, especially to transmit what is truthful, what is credible, what is believable, what is morally uplifting and for the good of society.
Okay, so what do you think should be done? Well, on the part of the government, part of individuals, that should be done to ensure that these ethical practices are not breached. Like, just like you rightly said, some go out of line. I don't really want to say some of the things that one can really come across on these social media platforms. Even funny enough, the radio stations, kind of oblige them the opportunity of misinforming some of our youth through this video. So what should be done to ensure that these things don't really, reshape the, the mentality of the consumers there or the audience?
Yeah, I think that globally, the governments across the world I've come to the realization that one way or the other, you know, yes, freedom is guaranteed by most constitutions of the world. Several United Nations charters endorse those fundamental principles of freedom of expression. But the point is also being made that freedom comes with responsibility. I mean, even the social media companies, the big data, metadata companies are beginning to also do some form of self-censorship, self-regulation. What do you think about Google, Facebook, and some of those major platforms talking about community rules? Community rules basically are like ethical standards. So it's becoming very very obvious, right, that as powerful as the media is, and it continues to be powerful, you know, that people who operate the media, either on the social media platform or on the conventional, must operate with the realization that they have a responsibility not to create harm to society. But what is happening basically in most societies is media practitioners and those who enjoy the power, you know, the freedom of the media, are often very suspect of government. And it's a debate that is continuous. Of course, there are instances where it is actually proven that government may also want to use regulation to also advance its own interest. But generally, the media is so powerful, like any other aspect of human endeavor that is important and borders on the health of the people of society, that there ought to be a modicum, a degree of regulation or control, so that the freedom is not exercised in a way that is counterproductive.
Okay, maybe this perhaps might be the last question. In terms of content creation, now back to the radio, what innovative approaches should radio stations, you know, take to still remain relevant, even in the wake of you know, modern technology?
Yeah, and one must pay credit to Nigerian broadcasting in terms of advancing the entertainment culture of Nigeria, even commodifying it and making it exportable. The boom you have in the music industry, all the celebrities you have that are winning Grammys and Oscars, of course they got the major stimulant boost from radio broadcast. Thanks also to federal government's vision about emphasizing through media regulation, local content. The rules then, and even up to now, say in Nigeria, you must at least air 70%, 80% local indigenous content in your broadcast platform. And many years ago, when the NBC enforced those provisions, broadcasters who at that time claimed that their technology will not allow them play local Nigerian music, or their TV will not allow them play local Nigerian films, were forced, you know, to transmit local indigenous content. And what is the result? We have a boom that is global. Nigeria today, third highest video or film industry in the world. And I think in terms of music, you can see perhaps we are number one, with our artists and musicians taking center stage everywhere in the world, thanks to radio.
Thank you very much. With that, we wrap up today's episode of Nigeria Today. We want to appreciate our guest, Professor Armstrong Idachaba, former Acting Director General, National Broadcasting Commission. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Thank you, Kira.
And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today every day at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also watch these and other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Once again, thank you for watching. I am Victoria Clinton. Goodbye.